An 8-year-old boy walked in front of a truck. With only 2 fingers, he lifted a 100-ton truck. The scientists standing nearby were completely shocked, but something even more magical happened. The boy picked up a glass bottle and dropped it from a high place. Before the bottle could touch the ground, it suddenly disappeared. The scientists wondered where the bottle had gone. The boy raised his small finger and pointed to the sky. The next second, the missing bottle fell down from the sky again. This kept happening again and again in an endless loop. At that moment, a man standing nearby became curious. He threw his keys into the air, but even after waiting for a long time, the keys never came back. As a top scientist, Dame felt this was not a simple matter. She quickly looked around and realized that the abandoned building was unusual. The magnetic field here was exactly the same as it was 8 years ago, when her boyfriend Thor came to Earth. Dame decided to follow the signal of the magnetic field to find the truth. But when she followed her instrument to the end of the building, a sudden force pushed her into an unknown and mysterious space. In front of her stood a huge square stone monument. A faint red light was glowing in the center of the stone. As a scientist, Dame wanted to study it carefully, but suddenly, the red substance in the center of the stone rushed into her body as if it were alive. In panic, Dame slowly lost consciousness. When she woke up again, she found herself back in the old factory. What she did not know was that in the moment she disappeared, 5 hours had already passed on Earth. What shocked her even more was that heavy rain was falling from the sky, but the raindrops were being pushed away from her body by some mysterious power. At that moment, Dame turned around and saw her boyfriend Thor, whom she had not seen for 8 years. Thor had disappeared for 8 years because he broke the Rainbow Bridge to save Asgard. Without the bridge, he could not return to Earth. He could only watch Dame's daily life through Heimdall's special power. This time, Thor appeared because he sensed something strange happening in Dame's body. Any stranger who tried to hurt her was thrown away by a mysterious force. Thor took Dame back to the palace of Asgard for treatment, but no matter what the royal doctors tried, they could not find the reason for her illness. Finally, Odin, the father of the gods, discovered the mysterious substance inside her body. He said this was impossible. At the beginning of the universe, there was a mysterious group called the Dark Elves. They used dark power to create a super weapon that could control the entire universe. The source of this dark power was the Aether particle. After the 9 realms were formed under Odin's rule, the Dark Elves tried to use the power of the Aether to return the universe to darkness. Thor's grandfather led the soldiers of Asgard to stop them. At the last second of their plan, he forcefully took the Aether away. Without the Aether, the Dark Elves were defeated, but the power of the Aether was too strong to destroy. So it was sealed in a place where no one could reach it. Millions of years later, because of the energy of the Aether, the seal was broken and the power became active again through Dame. This awakened the Dark Elves, who had been sleeping for millions of years. After confirming that the Aether was in Asgard, they sent their strongest warrior, disguised as a prisoner, into Asgard. Inside the prison, he took out a dark stone hidden in his body and crushed it. The dark power inside the stone instantly turned him into a powerful cosmic warrior. However, Loki was unwilling to accept the situation and revealed the location of the Aether to the enemy. To get the Aether, the Dark Elves launched a massive attack on Asgard. Even though Heimdall, the strongest guardian, was protecting the Rainbow Bridge, a great battle was about to begin. Even alone, Heimdall could not stop more than 100 enemy warships. When it seemed that Asgard was about to be attacked, Heimdall quickly activated the temple's protective shield. A giant energy sphere covered the temple. Any ship that came close was smashed into pieces, but the cursed warrior who had entered inside was guided by Loki. He reached the center of the temple and destroyed Asgard's only remaining shield. Tens of thousands of Dark Elves flew their ships straight into the temple. Today, they were determined to take the Aether particle from Dame's body. The Dark Elf prince even blew up Odin's royal throne on the spot. By the time Odin arrived, everything was already in ruins. At the same time, the Dark Elves had found Frigga, the queen of Asgard. What the prince did not expect was how powerful she was. With just a few attacks, she almost killed him. Luckily, the cursed warrior arrived in time and captured the queen. Now the prince had the chance to demand the Aether from Dame, but once again, the queen tricked him. In anger, the prince ordered the cursed warrior to kill her immediately. When Thor felt that his mother was hurt, he flew toward the temple. He struck with lightning and split the prince's face into 2 parts. Seeing the situation turn bad, the cursed warrior quickly escaped with the prince, but it was already too late. Everyone believed that after the queen's death, the saddest person would be her son, Thor. But in truth, the most heartbroken was her adopted son, Loki. When Thor went to the prison, and told Loki the truth about their mother's death. Loki tried hard to hide his pain, but Thor could see through him. Loki dropped his illusions and showed his real self. Without his mother, he looked completely broken. Although Frigga was not his real mother, she had always treated him like her own son. Loki always wanted to prove himself, but he never received his father's approval. Only his mother comforted him and encouraged him in secret. There was deep love between them. When Loki learned that his own words had indirectly caused her death, he felt great anger, but even more guilt. Now, Thor decided to give him a chance to make things right. Thor's original plan was to take Dame and go directly to the Dark Elves. When they removed the ether from her body, they would destroy it and also defeat the Dark Elves. But Odin, filled with anger, decided to stay in Asgard and wait for the Dark Elves to attack again. He believed that with his army of 10,000 soldiers, he could completely destroy the enemy. It was clear that Thor had started to think like a true king, while Odin was blinded by hatred. Asgard no longer had its protective shield. If the Dark Elves attacked again, the kingdom would suffer heavy damage. Even though Thor begged many times, Odin still ordered the Rainbow Bridge to be closed. Now, if Thor wanted to leave Asgard to find the Dark Elves, he had to use a secret path, and the only person who knew that path was Loki, who was in prison. To take revenge for their mother, the two brothers agreed to work together. But what annoyed Thor the most was that Loki, who had been locked up for almost half a year, became overly excited as soon as he was released. He kept asking endless questions. While walking, he turned himself into a golden guard, then turned Thor into his bride, and even turned himself into Captain America. With the help of 4 warriors, they successfully took control of a Dark Elf ship, but Odin had already closed all exits and activated every defense system, so Thor had no choice but to keep flying the ship and trying to escape in every direction. Thor finally could not tolerate Loki's behavior anymore, so he pushed him out of the spaceship. Loki is the most cunning villain in Marvel. One second, Thor had just unlocked his handcuffs, and the next second, Loki pulled out a dagger and stabbed his own brother, then pushed him off a cliff. Thor was about to call his hammer, but Loki quickly cut off his arm with a sharp strike. Then, revealing his frost giant identity, he handed Dame over to the Dark Elves. His goal was to personally witness the destruction of Asgard. After that, the Dark Elves forced Thor to watch as they removed the ether particle from Dame's body. But just as the ether was completely separated from her body, it was revealed that all of this was actually part of the two brothers' plan. When Thor got his hammer back, Loki quickly protected Dame with his body. As Thor used his lightning power to attack the ether, a huge explosion knocked everyone to the ground. They thought the mission was successful, but they had underestimated the true power of the ether. The scattered ether fragments on the ground slowly came back together and floated towards the Dark Elf Prince. The prince absorbed all of it instantly. Now filled with power, he needed to go to Earth to restart the universe. He ordered the cursed warrior and the others to act. At that critical moment, Loki pushed Dame aside, but he himself was caught in the blast of a bomb. Fortunately, Thor arrived in time and saved him with a strike of his hammer. However, Thor had still underestimated the cursed warrior. In both speed and strength, Thor was completely overpowered. Even Thor's mighty hammer could not seriously hurt him. The cursed warrior pinned Thor to the ground and kept hitting him again and again. Then Loki attacked from behind and stabbed through the cursed warrior's chest. But the enemy did not feel any pain at all. Instead, he struck back and fatally wounded Loki. Before dying, Loki placed a space grenade on the cursed warrior's waist. Using the power of space, he finally killed the cursed warrior. But Loki, badly injured, collapsed on the spot. To stop the Dark Elf from destroying the entire universe, they now had to return to Earth as quickly as possible. At that moment, even though they were millions of light years away from Earth, Dame somehow received a mobile phone signal from Earth. She even found nearby a soda can and car keys that she had lost a few days earlier. The two of them used a nearby wormhole to travel back to Earth. Now they needed to return home and plan how to stop the Dark Elves. When Dr. Eric saw Thor, he was very shocked. Luckily, the doctor had deep knowledge about planetary alignment. He explained that when the 9 realms overlap, if the Dark Elf who controls the ether releases it, the universe will fall back into darkness. Following the records in an ancient book, Dr. Eric quickly marked on the map the location called Greenwich, where the 9 realms would align. Thor picked up his hammer and prepared to leave immediately. But at that same time, the Dark Elf had already arrived above Greenwich in his spaceship. There were only 8 minutes left before the 9 realms fully aligned. Then Thor descended from the sky. After absorbing the ether, the Dark Elf Prince's power had become extremely strong. Without hesitation, he used the power of the ether to knock Thor to the ground. Although the Aether's power looked terrifying, for Thor it felt almost harmless. Just as the Dark Elf was about to release his ultimate attack, Thor struck him with his hammer and sent him flying hundreds of meters away. Then, Thor followed up with a powerful lightning attack, almost leaving the Dark Elf completely defeated. Dame, being a scientist, was not sitting idle. She used the power of space to teleport the Dark Elf soldiers to different places. But because of this, Thor and the Dark Elf kept fighting across different times and worlds. They fought from Earth to the Dark World, then fell off a cliff and returned to Earth again. They kept moving back and forth through different dimensions. Even Thor's hammer became tired from all this traveling. During the fight, even the Frost Beast from Jotunheim was teleported to Earth with them. Thor was suddenly teleported to a subway station, and for a moment, he could not find his hammer. So, he had to take the subway train back to the battlefield. At that time, the celestial bodies of the 9 realms aligned. The Dark Elf Prince raised both hands and began releasing the ether particles. The 9 realms were about to be destroyed. Thor had no choice but to take a risk and used the space teleportation device developed by Dr. Eric. Thor entered the ether storm, and at the right moment, threw the device at the Dark Elf Prince. As Dame's device activated, the elf's arm was instantly teleported to another planet. Seeing that the method was working, Thor quickly threw a second device. Although this could not immediately stop the ether, if the elf's physical body was destroyed, the ether would also be affected. Thor called his hammer and interrupted the Dark Elf's spell. With perfect teamwork alongside his girlfriend, the Dark Elf was teleported to the Dark World. What the Dark Elf never expected was that his own spaceship would fall on him and kill him on the spot. After the battle ended, Thor returned to Asgard. He hoped his father would allow him to stay with Dame. He was even willing to give up his right to become king of Asgard. To everyone's surprise, Odin agreed to Thor's request without hesitation. But after Thor left, the Odin sitting on the throne revealed his true form.